anyway, we're going to pick some black-eyed peas for you today.
Now, are black-eyed peas the same thing as pink-eyed beans?
No.
Because I don't see pink-eyed beans up there, but I know my dad always talked about pink-eyed beans.
You know what, there's a lot more variety of beans than what I have here. This just represents stuff that are easy.
The only time I've ever seen pink-eyed beans is that we grew them in our garden.
Is that right? I didn't even see anything mentioned about them, so. Okay, black turtle beans are your black beans that you get at Mexican restaurants. Love them. My family loves black beans, so we like to use those. We put them in soups and different things. They have a tendency to go mushy and fall apart, so you kind of have to be aware of that when you use them. Okay, garbanzo beans you've seen them in salads and different things. They don't. No, these are a very firm bean, and they take a little bit longer to cook than a lot of some of the beans. But they make falafel, hummus. We have some hummus that we make. The garbanzo beans that we'll share with you today as well. Okay, these are Great Northern beans. These are very similar to these navy beans, but they're a little bit bigger, so they take a little bit longer to cook. These are very versatile, can be put in all kinds of things, soups, casseroles, different things like that. And the white beans, your Lima beans or this are great for making flour, bean flour, and using it in recipes, different things like that, or pureeing or whatever. Okay, kidney beans, I think most people are familiar with kidney beans used in chili. They can be put in salads, soups, all kinds of different things. Okay, lima beans. We've got baby lima beans and large lima beans. Obviously, the baby ones will cook up faster. These are kind of fun just because they're just different enough that if you had to live on beans, maybe having some of these would make you feel like you're eating something different. So, anyway, mild tasting. They can be used in lots of different ways. I've got some information on that in your paper. Okay, lentils. I like lentils because they're very little and they cook up very quickly. They can be added to soups and side dishes and different things like that. Just for fun, I brought some different varieties. These are red ones. These have a tendency to fall apart a little bit more, so these are better for soups. And then these are French green lentils, and you can't find these very often. I've only seen them at what's the health food store?
Whole Foods.
Whole Foods. Whole Foods, but my understanding is they're not kind of starchy. So anyway, but lentils taste really good. Probably have them in a soup or whatever. But I like to store these because they cook up quickly. They can be sprouted. Most all of these can be sprouted. Okay, mung beans. They can be cooked as well, but you're probably most familiar with these because that's what bean sprouts are.
Did you make those bean sprouts?
No, I was going to, but when I thought about it, I didn't start at that time, and by the time I remembered again, it would have been too late, so maybe too soon.
Because I don't think you have to do them under pressure and no light or something.
No, my dad's made some beautiful.
They look like that?
Oh, yeah.
He did them in a jar, and they
The ones
just.
I've got are a little bit smaller, usually come out a little bit smaller, but not quite as long, but they're good.
Yeah. So, but these can be cooked up too, and can be put in soups and different things like that. But they're usually known for being sprouted. Okay, navy beans are these are smaller than the Great Northern. They cook up fast. These are the kinds that they make baked beans, pork beans out of. This is usually what they use. So, but they're versatile, and you can put them in lots of different things as well. Okay. You can buy dried whole peas, and those are great for sprouting, but they make split green and yellow peas. And these are great, too, for cooking because they cook up really quick. In fact, I like to take these and lentils and maybe a little bit of rice or barley or something like that and put them together and make a soup out of them. My family likes.
What spices do you use for that?
No, sometimes I will just use Nani. Nani's been a really good teacher for me. She should actually be here. But, in fact, we made some soup tonight, and all I used was taco seasoning, basically. So, and they make it, and then they'll eat it with tortilla chips and a little bit of cheese in it sometimes, and my family likes that. Okay, pink beans. Sometimes when you go to the store and buy a can of refried beans, they will be made with pink beans. These are very versatile, like pintos. Can be placed anywhere that you would use a kidney bean or a pinto bean. But they're not pink-eyed, though. They're just pink.
No, they're pink.
Okay, pinto beans. This is the most popular bean in America, and part of the reason is because of its versatility and because it is cheaper. And it can probably take any recipe that calls for a certain bean, know that you could choose another bean, whatever you have, and make it work. But pintos are very versatile and probably universally can be used. So if you don't store beans, or haven't used beans, this would be a really good place to start, or the anasazi, they're a little bit smaller, whatever. But like pinto beans. Okay, red small beans, these are used in chili, Creole dishes, beans and rice. Those are good, I like those. Okay, the last one is soybeans. Now, I brought them so you could see what they look like, but it's a very controversial thing, but I'm not going to recommend that you buy them and store them and use them. And there's lots of reasons why they're often genetically modified, but part of the problem is they are full of nutrition, but because of the other constituents that are in it, they're not really available and could even be somewhat harmful to our bodies. So it's interesting that throughout history, they've used them in the Orient forever, for years, for centuries, but it's always been in a fermented state. And they didn't know any better, but that's how, they didn't have the science that we have behind it now, but it's always been in this tempeh, miso, soy sauce, different things like that. They never ate it the way that we do.
Soy milk isn't fermented.
No,
It's
it's
not
not.
good for you.
No,
But they
and
have a
I,
lot of soy milk over there.
yeah,
Okay, Mike, have you ever tried to, I have tried to cook soybeans, and I have never been able to get them soft.
yeah, they take forever to cook too, so that's what they look like, but
They're always crunchy. And
there's better choices. And if you're gonna use soy, probably the TDP is gonna be easier to deal with, so.
So what do you do with soybeans that you have in storage still already? I have like 2 buckets of them.
I guess you could,
Grind them into, put them in,
you could grind them and
for
put
the
them,
flour.
yeah, you could do that. It's
But you know what, I would agree with you, there's some real problems with the hormones, they're high in estrogen, so to give them tries is a real problem, and for us ladies, it's too much, so there's many reasons not to use
Yeah.
them.
Are you talking about the GMO kind, or are you
Any
talking
kind
about?
You're not talking about the genetically modified soybeans?
Like I said, it's controversial, and we really don't have time, we can talk about it later, but,
There's
But, you know,
better options.
if you choose to do it, that's fine. I'm just telling you that it's one of
So
those
you
questionable
just get
things.
rid of them. You wouldn't even feed them to your chicken.
All right, let's move on. Okay, storing beans. Just the longer, the better you store them, the longer they're going to last. So you want to make sure that whether you're just on your pantry shelf or long-term storage, that they're in an airtight container. Long-term, they also ought to be nitrogen packed so that they're oxygen-free. And if they're in a cool place, they will last 30+ years. But if they're not in the ideal environment, they will last a short amount of time. But even on the shelf, they'll last a year or more. They're just going to get harder. They'll still be usable.
You just have to soak them all.
They'll have to soak longer, you go through some of those things. Cooked beans, once they're cooked, they'll last about 3 to 5 days in your fridge. And then they need to be thrown out because they will spoil easy. But you can freeze them. So freeze them, put 1 or 2 cups in a Ziploc baggie, take the air out, seal them, lay them flat, and then you can stack them up and store them really easily in your fridge.
Great, and you can dry them,
Freezer.
freeze them?
What's that?
See, we need Lily here.
You can
Can
dry
you
them.
dry them after they've been cooked?
Sure.
I haven't tried that, but.
Alrighty. Probably the best way to eat sprouts, when possible, is to sprout them. Anything you sprout is going to be better nutrition, and things will be more available to us in our systems. And I'm not going to go through the process of sprouting because we've done that in many other classes. But if you have some questions about that afterwards, go ahead and you can ask me about it. Every time we soak beans, we start that sprouting process. In fact, I soaked some beans the other day, and I could already see they were in the water, but the little tails were starting to come up. And I was like, yeah, this is good. Okay, so before we talk about cooking beans, let's go over a couple of bean cooking myths that are out there. One of them is that beans have to be soaked before cooking. No, they don't. You do not have to soak them before you cook them. They may take a little bit longer to cook, but you don't have to. We'll talk about it. Soaking is a good thing, and we'll talk a little bit more about why in a minute, but no, you don't have to. All right. Myth number 2, salt needs to be added after the beans are cooked because it will slow down the softening process or toughen the beans. Studies have shown, my experience shows, that when I add all my spices and seasonings and salt and everything to the beginning, it doesn't really make much of a difference. If there's any effect, it's very negligible. So the other myth that's sort of a myth, is that lemon juice, vinegar, tomato, or other acidic products need to be added at the end because it will slow the softening process.